The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to BBB Serving Connecticut's next installment of our COVID-19 webinar series. Today's title is, What If This Is Our New Normal? My name is Luke Fry. I'm the Associate Director of Communication for BBB Serving Connecticut, and I will be moderating today's broadcast. I also have a great staff member, Joni Green, who's going to be helping out with our Q&A later in the broadcast. Just a reminder, everybody is in mute, so if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the questions box, and we will try to cover them all during our Q&A. Unfortunately, if you have called into the broadcast today, we will not be able to take your questions at this time. Also, today's PowerPoint is available to download, so if you are using your computer for the call, you can go over to the Handouts tab and download today's slide deck. Also, if you have to leave our broadcast early for any reason or want to go back and hear something again, all participants are going to be receiving a wrap-up email with a link to the full video of today's broadcast. So as our series continues, we've really been choosing topics that we think will help Connecticut's business owners the most. And today's topic, I really think, hits a home run. What if this is our new normal? Business owners across Connecticut are now faced with the challenges of having employees working from home, remote working, and some may even have to completely be rethinking how they do business. Just keeping your employees a struggle, but how do you keep them engaged? How do you keep them happy? And also, how do you adapt your business model to the challenges that we are faced with throughout COVID-19? So these are all tough questions, but we are lucky enough to have Bob Holdsworth here today, who is the founder and coach of the Holdsworth Group and Take the Strong Road Coaching. Bob, thank you so much for joining us today. We are so glad you are here. And for the time being, I'm actually going to turn things over to you, and then we will have some Q&A after you are all wrapped up.
That's awesome, Luke. Thank you. I appreciate the ability to present the topic because it's not only timely, but it reflects a lot of what the phone calls are that are coming to our office. You know, how do I deal with this? And business owners have, for the most part, not been faced with this before. And we're talking about dealing with something that was put upon us fairly quickly with very little time to react. But now we are looking at, you know, what will be a slow and gradual opening of the economy across the country and Connecticut as well. And then we're going to deal with the potential of what happens if there is a resurgence, or what happens if it comes back in the fall or next year. And you know, we deal with this with cold and flu season and things like that, but not to this level. So we need to be prepared that Zoom and GoToMeeting and all that may become somewhat of our norm. So if you can hit the slide for me, Luke, and you're going to hear that a bunch of times during the course, folks. Luke has got control of the remote, and I have control of the presentation. So we'll be communicating as we go. But what we want to talk about, or what I want to talk about with everybody today, is the fact that we are going to need to support and manage our remote workforce. I think that's going to be part of our norm. And some people that are now working from home and working, you know, at other places are not going to necessarily want to come back. And then there's others who can't wait to come back. So you're going to have to deal with what if you want to get everybody back in the office and they don't want to come because they've tasted working from home. And some will adapt really well to it, and others are we're going to talk about mental health and motivating as the second topic, second area. Maintaining the motivation is one thing. Maintaining the mental health of the team is another thing, and that's something that we deal with as coaching. Is dealing with that mental health, because it creates an awful lot of stress on your workforce, and you as well, I'm sure, are dealing with it. I know I've managed a remote workforce before, and if you don't do it right, you can feel like things are slipping away from you. So there's a lot to work with there. The third area we're going to talk about is how to adapt your business practices, and many of you have already done that kind of with a gun to your head. But now's an opportune time to actually look at the way you do business and to spend this time wisely, potentially streamlining things that you've put off until now. So this can be not only a challenge, but it can also be a significantly good opportunity for how you go forward and serve your clients. And then the fourth area we're going to talk about is looking for new ways to, in fact, serve your client from their perspective. So I'm going to reiterate what Luke said, and if you have any questions as we go along, feel free to put them in the chat box. You'll have contact information afterwards if you want to reach out after to talk to either Luke or myself with questions you couldn't ask if you're on the phone. But we want to make this as useful for you going forward at 2 o'clock when you end this call, so that you can put some of this stuff into play almost immediately. So with that, Luke, can you move to the next one, and we'll talk about supporting and managing. So you're faced with something that was kind of thrust upon you in many cases. Some of you have had some work from home piece before or work remotely. Many of us travel and have to work remotely. But now the entire workforce, or a good portion of non-essential folks, are working from home. Which I hate that title, non-essential. If they were really non-essential, why did we hire them? So, I mean, these are folks that can afford to be out of the office to support the operation. And I think we kind of need to change that vocabulary a little bit. But the success tips here, there's 8 of them. The first is to outline clear expectations and some boundaries. And this is both for you and them. Expectations are that work will continue, that there are specific work hours if you have customer service people that are on the phone. So outlining what you expect from them in a work from home environment and making sure that they understand what that means. So they're still putting in 8 hours. Do you allow them to customize those hours so that they can get other things done? Are they pushing back saying, listen, I have kids at home now because the schools are closed and I need 3 hours in the morning, so can I start working earlier? Can I go a little later in the day? And if your business model allows for that flexibility, I would strongly encourage you to support them, because it's going to give them peace of mind, and it's going to take some of the stress off them, knowing that they can get their job done, keep you, and I'm going to speak predominantly here to you as if you were the business owner or the business leader or the team leader. But it also is very important that you and they have boundaries. So it's very easy now, because they're working from home, that you can pop off a question because you had that cross your mind at 8 o'clock at night, and expect that would be answered, when in fact, if they were in the office, they wouldn't be answering that question at 8 o'clock at night. So it is acceptable for them and you. Again, they would not be reaching out to you necessarily and expecting an answer. So what are the boundaries that are there, and be very clear about those. The second is to stay connected with them, and that does not necessarily mean just team meetings. Just as you would pop by somebody's office and say, how's the project, XYZ project coming, or I have an idea for what you're working on, and communicating with them about it, it is still important to do that same thing and do one-on-one or small group check-ins on particular projects. So if you have an all-hands team meeting where everybody comes in and there's 20 to 200 people on Zoom that are hearing from you about what's going on within the company and what the expectations are, that's great. Do not forget to schedule, and schedule, not just pop in, but in this case, you have to amend yourself to schedule those times to have those connect meetings with small groups and teams and projects. The third thing is encouraging personal growth. So just as you would have a conversation with somebody around the water cooler, or you would have have lunch with somebody, or you'd have a cup of coffee or whatever and talk to them about what are they going to do next, or taking a class or whatever, now would be a great time to encourage them that if they want to take an online learning class in between because they have a little bit more time because they're not commuting now. Now is a great time to encourage some personal growth, and that may be one way to help support them and help them grow, is allow them to take a computer class, allow them to take a class on online presentations because they're going to have to do that, and set those things up for them so they can take advantage of it. It also, as you're dealing with the expectations of what's going to happen, this allows you to also set up the time for annual reviews. Well, I'm going to take 3 classes. Okay, well, we're going to do them online, and we're going to make these available to you, and then you have the ability to come back and look at whether or not they actually took you up on that. The fourth thing is probably extremely important, and we're going to cover it again in the motivation piece, but it's important to celebrate accomplishments as a project goes off, as a proposal goes out. The things that you would celebrate in the office need to be celebrated still remotely, as opposed to just talking to that one person. And that's where we have to keep the work team, the workforce together. It's extremely easy to congratulate Sally or Tom because they got the job done, but nobody else knows about it, when in the office, if you were in an office environment, everybody would know that this large proposal went off, or that we closed a deal. And it's not just the activity of showing up 5 days a week for 8 hours and putting their time in and logging remotely that they did that. So it's important to celebrate individually, as you would in a congratulatory conversation with the person or team, but also sharing it with the company as a whole so they get a sense of how they fit in and what's going on, and there really is business being done. I am a big proponent of number 5, and that's visually sharing the stats. And we've done that in our office environment, and we do that remotely. Until 2 years ago, I owned a medical billing company, a very large medical billing company, and we would visually share the statistics of where not only the individual teams were, but the company as a whole against its goal. So everybody could log in and look and see. And we had it up on the wall. We had it in an environment where they could pull it off the computer and look. And it motivates the teams to keep moving because they can see how they benchmark against the the company expectations. And the little competitive streak also shows where there is a team that may not be necessarily getting it done as efficiently, as effectively, as completely as others. Not only do they welcome your assistance and you can spot a problem a mile away, but it also will encourage them to want to pick up the pace a little bit. And it's sort of a peer-to-peer motivation tool. I would encourage you, if you're not doing that, do it, but make sure you do it in a positive way rather than a punitive way. If that makes sense. Number 6 is deploy technology wisely. And what we mean by this is, do not inundate your team with 5 new computer programs to use. Working from home, organizing the family, dealing with kids, and now the caregiver because they've got elderly parents at home, and having to get meals where they were done at school, and still work 8 hours and try to close themselves off into a place, and then using software that they may or may not be familiar with, or procedures to get to the software. So going through virtual private networks or logging in and things like that, that is all stressful enough. If you start deploying lots and lots of new technology that you wanted to try, but now would be a great time, it may not. Do what you have to do to get the job done and deploy it wisely, and make sure that you have significant support available to them so that they don't get frustrated and want to throw the mouse through the wall because they don't know how to use it and they feel like it's all coming down around their on their head. The other part is there's also going to be a group that feels socially isolated because they may not have all those people at home, and now they've gone from an office environment to the silence of their apartment, and there's nobody around, and they don't have the ability to go out as much, if at all. And now you're putting So deploy what you have to deploy, but sparingly. One of the things that we did with some of our remote stuff would be to inject some humor, celebrate birthdays. I was on a call over the weekend with 24 other people from all around the world, and we've been meeting for basically 5 months every Sunday for 2 hours, taking a class together. And one of the folks was having a birthday. She was in Malaysia at the time having her birthday, and 24 people saying happy birthday on Zoom with a 2-second delay from all around the world. It was the worst choir ever. But now everybody wants a copy of that because everybody was laughing and having a good time. And you know, they brought everybody together. So figure out ways to do that with your team. You know your team, you know what they expect from what they'll tolerate from a humorous perspective. Be careful with what you put in emails and what have you from cartoons and things like that, because you cannot control the, you know, if somebody's offended by something, you have no way of seeing it. When you tell a joke, you can tell, but be cautious with that. But do celebrate the milestones, the 20th year, the third month, the first quarter, the birthdays, all that kind of stuff. And probably the most important thing that you can do is in the words that you use to talk to them, in the tones of emails that you send, in the tones of policies that you might create. It is extremely important that you boost in their minds the ability that just because you can't see them, you still trust them to get it done. You hired them as part of the team, and whether we're all together in one room or whether we're all together connected on a network, but we're in 25 different houses, we are all here for the same mission, which is to get it done, and we trust you to do it. So heavy-handed policies and procedures and things like that, while we still need some basics going back to the expectations and boundaries, we do have to allow them some space to get it done, as long as they're getting the job done in the amount of hours we expect. Some flexibility is important, and being able to support what they do, and how they need to manage their lives and still work, if that makes sense. So are there anything you want to go over, any questions related to this particular slide? Anything in the chat box that we need to address as we're going forward, Joni? Or can we move on?
We just had one question.
Okay.
And that was from Christine. She asked, what are your suggestions for small businesses that don't fall into this type of workforce? More of a retail setting, a small business less than 10 people that doesn't live on meetings.
Well, in this particular case, like for example, if you're a small retail, you get a small retail store and you get a staff of 6. If the store's not open, but you've now gone to an e-commerce situation, or you've gone to a curbside pickup situation, you can still have these meetings. You can still get on Zoom as 6 of you and have a roundtable meeting the way you normally would, just from remote locations, and talk about who's going to cover what and who's going to do things, and still have everybody bring their cup of coffee, and we're all going to bring your favorite mug, show off your mug to start the meeting off, and still have that same conversation and assignment of responsibilities and what have you. If you clearly are not able to open, and you're not able to come up with some of the adapting techniques that we're talking about as ways to provide some service or donations of service or what have you, then just staying in touch and letting people know every once in a while what's going on, that, you know, they still have jobs when you reopen. Some of that in and of itself is just comforting. But if you are going to be open in some form or fashion, I would encourage you to still have those meetings. You probably don't need them quite as often as a larger group would. But I have 3 members of my team. When we sold the billing company a couple of years ago, I now work from home. So I was doing it before it was cool. But now I still have 3 members of my team, and we get on as needed for a particular project because they each do something different, but we also all get on once a week to just kind of touch base. So that's what I would suggest.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else, Johnny?
No, that's all we have so far.
Okay, so let's move to the next one and talk about mental health. And I apologize for this slide, which is kind of a little bit loaded, more so than I like, but I wanted to try to keep this into as few slides as possible for everybody's, so we didn't have PowerPoint overload, which is another thing. Use PowerPoint sparingly. This is an hour-long presentation. There's 9 slides in total. So as a coach, it's important for me to address the mental health issues that people have, because again, moving from an office environment and I'm going to go fight traffic on 91 or 84 or whatever, and I'm going to go, or 95, and I'm going to go to the office, and I'm going to get in and I'm going to have a cup of coffee, and I'm going to check in with all my people, and I'm going to have a couple of meetings, get my stuff done, to crap, I'm working from home. I don't have the commute. I don't have a routine for this, because my routine is not the same as one of my team members' routines, because he or she has kids and isn't going to work until 10. So even though I'm in at 7, like I used to be, and I'm at my desk now, my whole team doesn't assemble at that particular point in time, except on all hands meeting day. So, that is an entirely different approach for a lot of people. And some people have very, very difficult time dealing with that level of change in such a quick period of time. Not to mention the fact that you put pandemic fears, you put, is there enough toilet paper for everybody? And, that's the biggest thing. Anytime there's a pandemic, please grab as much toilet paper as you can. But it's overwhelming. So as a team leader, it's important for you, or an owner, it's very important for you and for all of us to ask some questions fairly regularly. We talked on the last slide about periodic check-ins, but I want to give you some questions that you can actually ask in ways that you would ask them. So how are you, as opposed to how's it going, what's up, how you feeling? Those are good ones, but a genuine, heartfelt, how are you? I've taken to asking questions, and I'll say, I hope you and everybody in your inner circle, because I don't know all the family dynamics of everybody I'm talking to, but I've kind of changed that term so that they have the opportunity to tell me a story if they want to. And when you ask, how are you? If none of you have practiced or know, some of you, and I can't see a show of hands, obviously, but if you know what active listening is, it's a technique by which you listen to what the person says and then kind of put it back on them. So what I'm hearing, or if I heard you right, you said, and I'll share a resource with you for that if you want to learn more about it. But active listening is very important at this point. They're going to tell you some things when you ask these questions. It's important that they know you heard them, and active listening does that. In the beginning, the middle, and as on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, if you're doing this, what is the most challenging thing about either about your routine or about getting into a routine? And if you start hearing the same things from each of your members, things like, I'm having trouble getting organized, I'm having trouble with technology, I'm having trouble with boundaries with some of the staff people, some of my teammates. Those allow you to not only let them know that you've heard them, but it also gives you the ability to put your energy into solving those problems if more than 1 or 2 people are having them. So having a technology challenge, okay, I'm going to have the tech guys reach out to you, and I say guys in quotes, ladies. If it's organization, maybe we're gonna talk about best practices, the best way to organize your workspace. And we're just going to do, an hour or a half hour on things you can do or how to do that, how to set boundaries with your family. Ways to get them focused on positive pieces. And that's important in this whole process, is making sure that they can see that they're still connected, making sure that they can see that they're making part of it, because they only get to see their piece and they don't necessarily have that socialization as much as they used to. Even Zoom meetings where you can see everybody's face, it's still not quite the same. What's the highlight? What was the highlight of your day? And listen for things like, I can't come up with one. I had no highlights. Today sucked. I can't seem to get over the fact that the numbers are rising. I'm worried about my parent in a nursing home. Listen for signs of distress, depression, loneliness, inability to function, because those folks may need to have a little bit more outreach, a little more active. You don't want somebody to, end up either jumping ship and going looking for work at an essential business that's still open, nor do you want someone who may have some underlying issues that they've been seeking treatment for suddenly get worse because they're now working from home and dealing with the stress and the loneliness and things like that. Another thing, do you like working remotely? About a month or so in, which we're kind of there now, for everybody who is working from home, yeah, what's the best part of it? Listen to the words that they use, because those are words that you can use in emails, in policies, in phone calls with people. And if no, what do you not like about it? And again, listen for clues. I miss being around everybody. I miss being able to just spontaneously drop in and have a conversation. It also, as you're going through this, and if you have more than the 4 or 5 people that, we'll go back to the question was asked a while ago, if you've got a good sized team, you may, as you adapt your business, and we talked about that in a couple minutes, that may be your indication of which people you may be able to put off-site on a regular basis, which could in fact change the amount of space that you need, could change rental agreements and locations and things like that. So a lot of things that can come out of this that may be cost savings that would allow you to do some of this permanently. So listen for clues, kind of keep a running tab of who's doing what. Are they doing their work well? Are they thriving in this environment more so than when they were in the office? Maybe that's something you want to encourage if your business allows it. A very important part for all of us is asking what it is. If there's one thing that I could do to help you be more successful working at home, what would it be? And again, listen, I wish I had a better monitor. I wish I had whatever it is. It could be anything. What's the one thing I could do? If you can do it cheaply, efficiently, effectively, without showing favoritism, do it. If it's something that works, that the whole team should be able to get a hold of and would actually make them all more productive, do it. Are you feeling included in the discussions? Yeah, sorta. I kind of like the meetings, but I really kind of don't. What can we do to change that? Do we need to have a moderator that's allowing it rather than a free-for-all? Because if you're running the meetings, sometimes just like we're doing today, if you're running the meetings, you may not be the right person to be doing tech on the meetings. So perhaps somebody needs to run the tech, run the chat boxes and those types of things so that you can have a one-on-one conversation and look at people and then moderate those discussions in such a way that everybody, hey, we haven't heard from, hey, John, you've been very quiet. I'm going to come back to you in a minute, which gives them time to think and get back engaged because they were off in the corner kind of watching the news and off to the side. I'm going to come back to you in a minute, but I really want your input on this. And then suck John into the conversation. Some people work better in teams. So do you have a partner, an accountability partner,
a project buddy, any of those types of, pick a name that works? Or would you be better served if we put the two of you together to work on the Jones project? Yeah, actually, that would be great. We get along really well in the office. We usually pick each other's brains. Okay, well, why don't you guys, do that? And let me set up a Zoom room for you if you don't have the ability to do that yourself. Let me set up a Zoom room that you can use, just like booking a conference room. So, again, try to make it as office-like as possible, and do whatever you can do to support them and their mental health. But listen for clues when you're talking to people. And if you find somebody that seems to be, for example, if you get people who are missing meetings, if you requirement in one of your boundaries and expectations is that everybody will be on camera so we can all see your smiling faces during the meetings, because you can tell a lot by people's facial expressions, and you lose that, I think, when you're doing a meeting that's just on the phone. So the expectation is that they're supposed to be on, but they keep coming up with an excuse as to why they're not. That's a reach out and say, I really need you to be on because it's important that we all see each other while we're talking about this. If people are not participating, a couple of ways. Hey, John, I'm going to be back to you in a couple minutes, but I really want your input and want you to add to the group conversation here. So I'll give you a minute while we talk to Billy, and then we're going to talk to Sally, and then I'm going to come back to you. So you're not putting them on the spot. And if those things don't work and they're still staying off camera, or they're still missing meetings, or they're still not participating, or they come into the camera but they look like they haven't showered in 3 weeks, since quarantine started, it's time to reach out to them one-on-one and say, listen, I'm concerned about you. I want to make sure you're okay. That goes a really long way in helping people and supporting their mental health, is just knowing that you actually care. So it's a little more work for all of us. It would be easier just to stop by somebody's cube or say, hey, do me a favor, stop by the office. I just want to ask you a question, and close the door and have that conversation. You have to do it a little bit more artificially, but it's still the same thing. You still care, and they need to know that you still care. If that makes sense. Joni, any questions, comments, anything here?
Not yet.
Okay. Anybody got anything that they want to discuss before we move to the next piece? 3, 2, 1. Okay, Luke. There you go. All right, so now that we've talked a little bit about maintaining their mental health and setting some boundaries and expectations and things like that, now we need to kind of keep the motivation and the satisfaction up remotely. And it is extremely important for you, because you're going to have a little bit more work on your plate, where it's so easy to stop by somebody's cube on the way to and from coffee or the bathroom or whatever, and now you physically have to build in time in your schedule to have all these meetings and check-ins and everything else. It is also extremely important for your own mental health as well as theirs to allow them and to build in both breaks and rewards. And by building in breaks, I do a lot of remote phone and Zoom related coaching sessions with business people and with life coaching clients. I cannot do a coaching session from 1 to 2, another one from 2 to 3, another one from 3 to 4 without a break. You just can't do it. You need a bio break, you need to get coffee, you need to get water. You just need to clear your head after one meeting was tougher than you expected it to be. So build in breaks between your meetings to simply get up and stretch your legs, go get some fresh air, use the bathroom, check on the kids, whatever you're going to do. But don't schedule yourself, because it's too easy to find yourself, well, I'm here and I'm going to just jam pack 8 hours, and then I'm going to get off and I'm going to have dinner and I'm going to be fine. Nope, you're going to be exhausted, and you're going to be frustrated, and then you're going to have to go and do the work that you didn't do and make the notes that you need to do and schedule the follow-ups because somebody, presented with an issue or a problem that you need to research. So try to limit the number of sessions in a day if you can, and make sure that you put those breaks on the calendar. The other part is rewards. If you get this done by X, tomorrow morning I'm going to take 2 hours for myself and I'm going to go for a walk because it's a nice day. As soon as this particular project is finished, and I'm going to take 2 hours for myself, just like you would take a mental health day, just like you would work from home, just like you might come in late. Just the fact that you're working from home does not mean that because the sun is up, you need to have your butt in the chair and you need to stay there till the sun goes down. You wouldn't do that in the office. Don't make the mistake of trying to do that, at home. There are just too many things that need to get worked into a schedule so that you can have your sanity when this is done. Another thing to do is schedule some fun events. Hard to do, but not difficult to do. The birthday, singing happy birthday to our colleague in Malaysia, very, very badly, was a fun event. But as you're scheduling some fun events, virtual happy hour after 5. Everybody bring their wear a weird T-shirt to the meeting because it's just a team. Show us your favorite hat. It's stupid stuff like that, but it keeps people creative. It keeps people engaged. Don't make it mandatory. Some people just don't want to do that, and they go, "That's like the office birthday party where, all right, I have to go because they're having cake." Other people are like, "Hey, they're having cake. I gotta go." But keep some informal notes of people who don't show. And I do that not as a punishment, but again, that goes back to the last slide. If you have people who are not participating, not engaging, not enjoying this at all, but they used to enjoy it at the office, those are the people you need to pay attention to make sure they're okay. So it's not a punitive thing. It's not, you didn't wear your hat, or you don't have enough flair in your uniform or any of that kind of stuff. This is truly about making sure they're okay. And you know what they were like in the office. If they didn't come to anything in the office, they're not going to come to anything now. If they did come to everything in the office and they won't come to it now, or they don't look like they're having a good time, find out why. There's something going on. If you have meetings that, like we have a bunch of meetings that are weekly, and sometimes they're a little bit longer apart than that. If that's what you're doing and you're having meetings that are roughly a week apart, all hands meetings or what have you, or department meetings, a kickoff exercise, again, try to bring the team together as opposed to just, okay, let's get started with the agenda. The agenda is kickoff exercise. That's agenda item number 1. And that is, how are you? How is everybody? Anybody have any particular concerns? Tell me the best thing that's happened to you this week and a little bit of good news. Tell us a success story you had with a client, with a project, with a whatever, or simply, what are you grateful for? That changes the mood of a meeting very quickly. If you go around the room and you put a limit, in 5 words or less, tell me something that you're absolutely super grateful for, and around the room real fast. It works. The mood lifts. People breathe out. They feel good about it, and they get to celebrate vicariously, listening to other people. Like, oh, I had something like that too, or whatever, and it brings people together. They got their grandparents out of the nursing home and brought them home. So those are all good things. Sharing customer success stories or thanks from customers. We will deal with problems, as they go, and that's the purpose of having those conversations. But customer success stories and thanks prove to them and motivate them to keep doing the job that they're doing, because it shows the customers are in fact supporting them, which is one of those, will I have a job when this is done? What if the business is impacted? Well, our customers are happy. They're watching what we're doing. They're appreciative of our efforts. They feel good about the mission of the company, and that helps boost the motivation, helps boost the satisfaction that they're doing a good job. If you have a group and if you have a budget and you have a relatively you have a budget to do this in a relatively small group or a big budget in a big group, send them, you've got their home addresses, or you've got their email addresses, send them. I have one company who sent out Amazon, $50 Amazon gift cards to their employees, and they sent the electronically, and just said, listen, I know it's tough. I know things are hard right now. Go buy something nice for yourself. Grocery certificates, send somebody some flowers, if they're having a birthday or whatever. And, if you have some place that's still open, there are folks that can do that. If nobody's open, you have to save it for another time. But sometimes it can be a physical product. Sometimes it can be an e-card. Sometimes it can be a grocery certificate or something like that. Just something to let them know that you're thinking about them and that you appreciate them. The motivation that comes from that is dramatic. And separate from a work-related topic meeting, if you want to have part of an all-hands meeting or and I'm going to use this and hopefully not offend anybody, but you can just have a shoot the shit session with the boss, and just have an open discussion about what's going on. Everybody's got real fears about the virus. And my being in healthcare for 40 plus years, I don't have as much of a fear as the news media is making it out to be, but there's some science in my case behind that. In a lot of people's cases, they're extremely nervous about this. And they don't know what they don't know. They're concerned about whether they're going to lose their job, whether the company's going to survive, and they're concerned about when they can come back, when normal is going to be back. And as the title of this slide suggests, this might be normal to some extent. We might be partially remote. We might have to go back to this at some point down the road, based on whether there's a resurgence. They need to hear that stuff, and they need to hear that you're doing everything you can, and be transparent. Don't hedge your bets. If you don't know, I'll find out. Don't try to sugarcoat it, but also, tell them the truth. But that kind of stuff, that outreach kind of stuff, shows them that you care, and that's really what they're looking for right now. In my humble opinion, is they're looking for as close to normal as they can get, and as close to good information and feeling supported as they can get. Any questions, comments, anything we need to address before we move?
Not yet.
Okay, cool. We'll keep going. Luke, you're up. So adapting your business practices. Say again?
Sorry, I would ask anybody who is on the call, Bob did have a question for everybody upon registering. So if you, again, are on our call, if you don't mind typing in that question box what your biggest challenge is right now, Bob can go over that after he is done. So again, if you're on the call now, kind of typing in the questions box what your main issue or concern or struggle is right now.
Awesome. Thank you. So adapting your business, we're all having to learn how to work with some new rules, but it's important for us as we do that. It's hard right now to stay customer focused because we're kind of in self-preservation mode and company focused. So what does this mean to us? What does this mean to our bottom line? What does this mean to our profitability? What does this mean to my workforce? It's hard to stay customer focused when looking at your business practices, but that's actually exactly what you need to do, because that will in fact take care of the other issues. And it also takes people's focus and puts it back where it belongs, which is you're in the business of taking care of your customers. So what is it that they need? And need versus want is very important. What is it that they need that you can deliver? And we'll talk about how to do that, but how can you get it to them when we have challenges? We still have UPS and Postal Service and FedEx are still running. The delivery service companies are still bringing food to people's houses, even more so now because some of the fees are being waived. Looking introspectively at your company, what can you do to amend the practices keeping in mind what your core deliverables are. Is there another way to do it? Is there a better way to do it? Is there a way to do it that is potentially less expensive, but equally as satisfying for the customer? Because now, where we have not necessarily looked at our business, not all of us look at our business on a regular basis, because if everybody did that, my coaching practice would be out of business, because businesses come in and say, I can't see what the options are. This is a good time for you to look at those options and have your team look at those options. Now that you have been removed from the normal and everyday, you've reshuffled the cards, if you will. So now is a good time to look at all of the ways that you do things and say, okay, this is a challenge. Do we need this? How can we avoid going back to this if we really don't need to go back to this? So do we need some new vendors, different vendors? Should we deploy different technology to support what it is that we're doing? But remember, with technology, as you are bringing new technology on to support a diminished workforce, everybody is looking at that technology saying, I could be replaced as well. So it's important for you to embrace the technology, insert the technology into the business with a clear path showing that there needs to be bodies behind the technology that are customer facing, if that makes sense. So you're going to have to deal with two things. You're dealing with the adaptive practices. You're dealing with the ability to change how we deliver what we deliver, looking at what we deliver to see what we may not want to deliver anymore, and remembering to be addressing the fear of replacement of staff as we put non-human technology in place. We also need to talk about timeframes. So be very clear about the implementation schedule of this. Are we going to try to do it while we're still all out? Are we going to do this as we come back to some sense of normalcy? And we found new ways. We're going to implement these slowly, and we're going to implement these in stages, moving into that. And then be very clear with everybody about obstacles and, looking at what approvals you're going to need and things like that. Will you need to, talk to any regulatory agencies about deploying things? Will you need to get different approvals from community boards when they start meeting again about what you're doing? But this is a prime opportunity for every one of us to take a look at what it is that we do every day in serving our customers and deciding whether or not what we used to do was the right way to do it. And several years ago, I actually lost a couple of large clients from the billing company. I lost $400,000 of work in a 90-day period because clients moved to a different platform. And if you want to read the article about it, I'll put that in the resource guide. But we looked at absolutely every inch of our business because of that was a 20% revenue loss in a 90-day period. And we're all going through that right now. But we looked at absolutely everything in our business because we had gotten kind of fat, dumb, and happy, and determined a lot of things that we did not need moving forward, and that there were better ways to do things, that we were able to renegotiate contracts. And we ended up having our best year ever coming out of that, simply by taking the opportunity to do it. It was forced upon us, not unlike what we're all being forced with right now. So this is your challenge. How do you play under the new rules, and how can you change your practices with the people that you have and the technology that you have? So we can move to the next one, and then we'll come back to questions at the end. So finding new ways to serve your customers. This is the time to look at, is there a product or service that you were thinking of deploying, but you were a little scared to deploy because you didn't know how people would react to it? in the middle of all the chaos that's right now, the fact that this is a great time to launch that, because people will not pay attention to anything other than the fact that, hey, you've got something new and you're still operating. So are there new ways to bundle or package your services? Is this the time to change sizes? Amazon did that to me very quickly with masks. When the governor changed the plan and said we're going to go to mandatory wearing of masks in a 6-hour period, because I had started to place an order with Amazon for a box of 100 masks. In a 6-hour period of time, Amazon shifted, and you could no longer buy a box that was larger than 50, and the price had changed. So they adapted very quickly as a way to introduce new sizes based upon the changing environment of what the governor's order had been. When it came up, and it was a number of the other governors that did the same thing. Should we be doing more things online? Some of you have probably moved to an online versus an in-person business. Some of you have instituted delivery, some where you've never had it before. Some of you have looked at curbside service. So as you look at those new products and services, should we also be, I'm skipping a bullet, but I'll come back to the other one. Should we also be looking at delivery methods? Can you offer more things by download now? Because that's certainly less expensive than necessarily having in-person sales, but having in-person sales to be able to go and support those people, or do webinars, seminars in addition to in-person when that's not allowed again. Home delivery. I'm going to talk about a case study in a minute about probably the coolest home delivery story I've heard so far. Curbside delivery, digital products, digital online manuals. Some of you have ways of doing business that you've never dealt with the frequently asked questions that your clients have for you. Now is a great time, if you've got downtime with your project teams, is to sit down and write down and create a video for the clients of the 10 frequently asked questions they wish their client base would understand, and put that out there as a new item to assist and potentially take some of the load off inbound tech calls or inbound support calls. If you go to any department or anybody in your office and you say, what are the 10 things you wish our clients knew about X, insurance, filing a claim, using our ordering software, whatever it is, and you've never put that in writing and never clarified it, now's the time to do it. Because people are looking to interact with you electronically, put it online so they don't have to keep calling. It's also a great time to eliminate underperforming products or services. So are there stuff that you have always thought that you would want to get rid of, and you've analyzed it, but you're afraid to pull the trigger because it's a legacy item, it's something you've been doing for years and years and years, and there's still a small group of clients that really want it, or there's clients that are forcing you to keep those products and services in play just because it's comfortable for them. Now is the perfect time to say, because of the change in business, this is now going to be eliminated. And it doesn't roll out anymore. We're not going to support that anymore. We're not going to offer that anymore. All of those things. You have almost a get out of jail excuse card right now to be able to make some of those changes in your business that are bottom line better for your business by either increasing what you're offering, the ability to eliminate stuff that doesn't work anymore, the ability to change the way you deliver it. And by doing all of that, you now have the ability to assist in developing the new customer behaviors, which are to their benefit in doing business with you and your benefit by providing more to them, potentially at a lesser cost, or providing it to them in a better, more easily consumable manner. So take advantage of that opportunity that you have in front of you and find new ways to serve your customers, but also build a stronger business moving forward. So last, let's talk about some case studies and then we'll take some questions. So Luke, if you click the next one. I don't know the dog's name, but I'm calling him Einstein for this picture. That's just the name that screams off the slide at me. But there are 6 really quick things that I want to go through some case studies. McDonald's is probably the biggest one, McDonald's and Amazon. McDonald's is using this opportunity in many of its restaurants to refine its menu. When it offered, and I've heard this and I researched it as best I could, but in the restaurants you actually will see it. Their full breakfast menu was something that they offered, and it's been marginally successful. Certain items sell like hotcakes and certain don't, certain ones don't. In the middle of this pandemic, they used the example to redesign and eliminate some of the offerings in the breakfast menu on the 24-hour availability schedule. And they've been able to eliminate some of the underperforming products, which streamlines their menu, keeps the speed up. Truth will be told as to whether or not people react well to that, but they've used this excuse as a way of streamlining the menu because they have reduced staff. But they have no intentions, from what I can tell, of bringing some of those items back. So they're doing exactly what we talked about in the last slide. I told you briefly about Amazon. Amazon has always been in the business of selling you as much stuff as you could possibly do it, as they can possibly sell you, and selling it to you through Amazon Prime that you pay for to get it faster. And for the first time that I am aware of in Amazon's history, they've actually put self-imposed limitations on products other than geographic areas, and actually limited the amount of stuff that you can buy and the quantity in which you can buy them, size-wise. And the masks were a perfect example. So they actually changed the customer's behavior by imposing something upon all of us. And we can still do business with them, but they've changed the terms. If they can do it, so can you. If you watched Fox 61 News the other night, there was a Black Hawk Brewing Company, which is a BBB member of ours, and they opened up the brewery. They expanded their food line so that there's some groceries that and some meats and what cheeses and things like that, that they want you to be able to still have your barbecue experience, even though you can't have it with them. And that's exactly what one of their owners had said on the story. But they actually have gone to the point, and this is the cool part for me, if you buy a couple cases of beer and some of this food and what have, they will actually send a limo. They've partnered with a limousine service to actually deliver your food. I'm sorry, but for me, if they're going to send me beer and hot dogs and hamburgers and cheese in a limo, that's just cool. That's a new way of doing business with them. And as soon as they open, my loyalty is going to be to go back to them. So what can you do to do that same type of thing and get look for new ways to work with your customers to make sure they get your product as they expect. Another member of Fusion Cross Media, they are in the sign and graphics business. They did not have a lot of projects. A lot of projects had kind of dried up for them because of the businesses that were closed down. They decided that they were going to use their printing capability and make signs in-house. Those signs then were subsequently sold, and the money went to support charity. So while they're not necessarily impacting their bottom line, they are allowing the tax write-offs and things, but they're also giving back to the community, which is going to, in the court of public opinion and goodwill, going to get them a lot of press. It did get them a lot of press, and they did some really good work, and they're still doing it. Jessica's Color Room, she's a studio, a salon that was closed down, so she couldn't provide her services. She decided she would use the facilities at the Color Room to clean first responders' uniforms for them, so that if they couldn't get home or they didn't want to take their stuff home or whatever, she had some facilities there because of the laundry rooms and the stuff that they've got in the thing, that they were going to bring the uniforms and they were going to do them for them. Again, not making money, she's doing it for free. She's keeping her staff busy, she's donating her time, but she's getting serious positive press about it. So is it helping you make payroll? No, you go through the process and We've all had our challenges going through the the government's program. Some of us have done well, some of us have not. But in the meantime, you still have the ability to give back and build some positive press for yourself. And then we have restaurants that are adding groceries. They're allowing them to stay open. Takeout for the first time. When was the last time you thought you had gourmet food delivered from one of your favorite Italian restaurants or steakhouses, hot and fresh, and you can still get it? If a place like a Ruth Chris or whatever can start doing some takeout and delivery, and some of the high-end Italian restaurants can do takeout and delivery successfully, what is it that your business could do to get out there and do something positive in the community and change the way in which you're doing business? So if this is our new normal, we really have to take the opportunity to think it through, to make some of those calls and make some of those determinations, and do not be chicken about doing it and changing your customers' behaviors. If you have a good enough relationship with your customers, they will come back, they will stay with you at a limited fashion, and they will come racing back when you're back at full steam. So don't be shy. Think about them, but also think about yourself and use this time efficiently. So I'd like to open it up to any questions. You can put up the contact slide. If anybody would like to talk to me more, this is the way you get in contact with me. I've been proud to be part of the Better Business Bureau this is my 20th year as an accredited business. So it's been great for me, and I appreciate the opportunity to have spoken to all of you. And Joni, if there's any questions, let's deal with them.
Okay, I just have one question from Paul. And his main concern is staying in touch with his team who works the off shifts, because his business is open 24/7.
Okay. Well, the off shift stuff, I guess I don't have the ability, unless you can type real quick, Paul. How did you keep in contact with them when you were open? Did you schedule meetings and go in periodically to meet with them? In the middle of the night, did you have a manager do it? So whatever you did before, we're just going to kind of still be doing it somewhat remotely. And I used to manage a long time ago. I used to manage an ambulance company, very large ambulance company. So talk about remote work sites. Not only are they remote and on computers, but they're also doing 60 and 70 miles an hour going to calls. And they're 24/7. And I used to every once in a while show up at 2 o'clock in the morning and walk in and have a conversation with the guys and have a cup of coffee and go. So I don't know
That's what Paul said. He said he would show up in the center during off hours when they were all working.
So if they're still working during the off hours, so Paul, I would say to you, if you have a business that everybody's still working off hours, I'm assuming that they're working remotely and they're not working in a physical location in the off hours. Is that correct?
He said, I do, and they are.
Okay. From Amazon, a new alarm clock and a Zoom meeting in the off hours at 2 in the morning, and then you can go back to bed. But I think the same thing that you would do, the good news is you can get back to bed faster because you don't have to drive there to the office. But again, maintaining as much of a sense of normalcy as you can. So whatever the process was that you had before, do your absolute best to continue to replicate that, even though it's in an artificial camera shot environment. Joni, anybody else?
I have no more questions. I just have one comment from Stephen Gidley, who is the past chair of the Connecticut BBB, and he just said this was an excellent presentation.
Well, I thank you, sir. I appreciate that very much. And again, if I can be of any help to any of you, like I said, the contact information is on your screen right now. You have it and download. You'll get it later. Please reach out. Be happy to be in touch. Even if you don't need help, I'm just happy to hear stories about what it is that you're doing, and if there's anything you took away from this that you were able to deploy in your business, I'd love to hear about it.
All right. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate all the time you took to help us through this time and kind of give us your perspective on how to, keep our employees engaged, keep ourselves engaged. I think that's also important, is to, even as an employer, to, keep yourself in a positive mindset. And that in turn will hopefully keep your employees positive as well. We also appreciate everybody for calling in, listening in today. Reminder, a link will be sent to all participants to the full recording of today's broadcast. You can also always turn to BBB on social media for our next topic and any other great consumer tips that we have throughout COVID-19. Thank you again to Bob, and I hope everybody has a great rest of their day.
Thanks, Luke. Thanks, Joni. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
Everybody have a great one. Stay healthy, stay safe.
All right, thank you.